I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, I teach at Hamilton College in Clinton, New York, which is a very small, kind of classic New England liberal arts college. It's nothing at all like Utah State University. So, I will tell you about our research and tell you what I think we've learned, and I hope that a lot of it applies to your situation, but the truth is, I don't know. I don't know if it does or doesn't or how much, so I'll count on you to figure that one out. Okay. Oh, and I have this. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I can work this. Right. I'm a 20th century guy in a 21st century world, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. So I'm impressed that I've got one of these at all. So. The United States has kind of hit a ceiling on college costs and how much we can charge to students. This is true across the country in various ways. Some places cost a lot more than others, and their prices will continue to go up because there are some people in America who can pay those prices. The place I work costs $65,000 a year. Now, lots of our students are on huge financial aid, but we still have a sizable number who pay full ride. Again, that will not change. Some places can do that. But generally speaking, the United States has hit a ceiling on college costs. We need to figure out ways to make education better without making it more expensive. In 1999, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation came to Hamilton College and gave us a small, very modest planning grant and said, we want you to spend 1 year figuring out how college works, specifically in a liberal arts setting. But how college works, meaning what do students learn and how does that happen? How does that come about? So it was initially an assessment project. What happened is we expanded it outward rather dramatically. When the president asked me to head this project, I said, if you do this seriously, really figure out what students learn in college and how that unfolds in real time, I said, this is a 10-year project. And he said, no, Dan, this is 1 year, 1 year, that's all we're at, 1 year, right? You run this in 1 year. Well, it turns out we were both wrong. It was 15 years. So for the next 15 years, I worked, 11 of it, on the research properly, on trying to figure out the answers to this question. Now, what we were really trying to do is find workable ways of improving student outcomes. I'll come back to that in a minute, what that means. Improve student outcomes in ways that could actually reasonably happen, which is not at all the way most education initiatives unfold. I'll get back to that in a sec. Okay, so we got together a group of 7 faculty from all different fields, and we sat down and we said, what if we come up with ideas for how education, higher education can be improved, what are the criteria those solutions have to meet? What are the boundary conditions? All right. We wanted to develop ideas that anybody at any college or university could use. We wanted ideas that would be reliable, powerful, available, and cheap. Let me explain. Number one, they have to be, our suggestions, and I think this works, have to be reliable. They have to work. They have to have a proven track record of working. That means that fantasies about, for instance, we should totally rethink college education and do it in an altogether different way. When people start saying that, that doesn't count. Big fantasy scenarios are not on the table here. Who knows if they work? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Second, they have to be powerful. Powerful meaning a little bit of effort will produce a big result. Not you spend $20 million and maybe something good will come about. Right? It's got to be a little bit of effort creates a big result. Number 3, whoa, I did that wrong. Okay. People online, I know, can't see this, but I'm pointing at available. Available means our proposals should be things that anybody can do. You don't have to go through 8 levels of committees and get the president's approval to do it. Anybody on campus can do the kinds of things we're talking about. In fact, some people off campus can do them. We tried to formulate suggestions that literally any of you, if you wanted to, could put a little bit of effort into. Ooh, oh, that's great. I like that. Okay. See? Anybody could do and get a reliably big payoff for the effort. And number 4, they have to be cheap, financially cheap. No new resources, right? You can't add a bunch of faculty in the department to do it. That stuff doesn't fly, right? It's got to be just by rearranging what we do now a little bit, you should get much better results. That's what we were trying to go for. Now, again, that rules out lots of otherwise beautiful proposals. In my world, people are always saying things, oh, let's have freshman seminars, for instance, right? We'll add a dozen faculty to a small college. We'll have these small It's expensive. You can't do that, right? It's very expensive. Big technology initiatives frequently. Who knows? I just read, you read books like Kevin Carey's book, The End of College, and it's all about the whole thing's going to be online and unbundled and credentials and badges and on, and how wonderful this will all be. Well, that's great. I don't know. Fine, go ahead, give it a whirl. Who knows if it'll work? But what we do know is it'll cost a fortune up front. That's off the table. I mean, maybe that's the way to go. That's not what we're going to propose. Buildings. My own college loves putting up big new buildings. We just finished a big new art center. Dynamite. I'm glad the guy gave $50 million. That's good. Eh? Right? That's good. Or new art center, or new science buildings. I'll give you a story. In 1999, right, I was talking to the president of so you all know U.S. News, right? U.S. News rankings? I think maybe they just came out for this year. I was talking to the president of a very highly ranked small liberal arts college, national liberal arts college. And I mean very highly ranked. I won't tell you which number, but it's about as small as they get. I was talking to this person, and he was saying, oh, we've just launched a new, I forget, $120 million capital campaign. I think the number was something like that. We're putting up a new art center. We're totally renovating the science facilities. We're doing a brand new fitness center named for so-and-so. We're adding a bunch of faculty, and we're redesigning the curriculum. This is great. But he looked a little shaky. I said, what are you thinking? He said, the truth is, I don't think it'll actually improve the education of the students. I don't think it'll actually improve their education. When it gets right down to it, it's not going to matter. I said, well, why are you doing it? And he said, it's the year 2000. The trustees want something millennial. Which is true, right? They're great for fundraising, and it's inspirational, and those things have their place, right? I got that. But that's not where we're going. We're trying to do things that anybody can do, that reliably work, that don't cost anything extra. All right. So what we did to find out, to learn about college, was that. Oh my. Now that's unreadable at home, I'm sure, at other locations. But basically, we spent 11 years doing a multi-method, longitudinal, comprehensive study of undergraduate education at one little college. But we were going to really learn what went on with students in that one setting. Okay? So, for instance, we did a whole bunch of different projects, as you can see, and it used essentially every social science research method available. The biggest thing we did, the top 2 were the biggest. The main thing we did was a panel study, a longitudinal panel study. We took a random sample of 100 entering students in the fall of 2001, and we followed those people for the next 10 years. By followed, I mean we interviewed them every year they were in college. and every other year after they graduated. We collected papers they wrote all the way through college, as well as papers they had written in high school. We did focus groups with them. We did transcript studies of these people. We studied them every which way. I mean, we didn't take blood tests, all right? But other than that, we really got to know these people well, and in the years after they finished as well. That was the heart of the project. There were a lot of other things. The writing study in particular is interesting if you'd like to hear more about that. But basically, we followed people very closely. I'll jump to the conclusions. What we were looking for in this was what really matters in their college experience to all sorts of outcomes. Outcomes like if their writing improves, for instance. Outcomes like did they get a decent job when they got out? Outcomes like were they happy with the whole thing? Just all sorts. Did they have friends, etc., etc. All sorts of different things that one could see as potential benefits of going to college. That's what we were looking for. And we wanted to know, I get excited, what sorts of things actually affect their outcomes in a positive way. And in particular, are there any readily variable things that affect their outcomes in college? What really matters? Well, what we found was that. That's it, right? What do you know, right? In a way, that answer is quite simple. In other ways, it's pretty complicated. But the crucial, easily variable factor in student success I mean, we're talking academic success as well as everything else, right? Is the quality of their personal relationships. And there are two kinds that are important here: friends and well, let's say peers and authority would be one way to put it. But the way we framed it in particular was, well, okay, I'm jumping a little bit. Here's the neat part. You've got 20,000 people here, something like that, right? Roughly, students, faculty, everybody, all the staff. I mean, you've got tens of thousands of people in this location. And online, lots more. And yet, for any and every, right, for every individual, real, live student, all they need to succeed in college is that. 2 or 3 good friends, 1 or 2 great teachers. That's all that any particular person needs. That is sufficient. Now, I'm not saying it's great. I mean, it'd be nice if their other teachers were good, you know, and it'd be great if they had more friends and acquaintances and so on, right? I understand. But this is sufficient. The interesting part is that it's also necessary. It's also necessary. If they don't get this, it doesn't happen. Okay? If they don't find friends, now, well, I'm talking traditional age students here, right? When they get to be 35 years old, that's kind of a different gig. And we could talk about how this applies here, but we're working from, like I say, a sort of traditional age situation. If they don't find friends at the school early, nationwide, they'll leave. They'll drop out. And even if they don't drop out physically, they drop out emotionally. And then they're unhappy for the next 4 years. And they're not motivated for the next 4 years. All right? And the 1 or 2 great teachers, the version of that really matters, they've got to be inspired to do schoolwork. And the way that happens, the best case scenario, is they have a great teacher in their freshman year. Only takes one. Not everybody has to be that great freshman year teacher. People have different skills. People are good at, some people are great at upper level seminars, which is valuable. But if you don't have the great teacher early on who gets them fired up in the first place, the other stuff doesn't happen anyway. Sorry. Right? You've got to have a positive experience early on, because that, for many, many students, that's what legitimates the entire academic enterprise. They come to college open to the possibility, maybe, maybe not, maybe they're slogging through, I don't know. But if they hit some great person early on, they go, oh, wow, and they see the potential. They see this can be great. And it's not about the song and dance and razzmatazz of, charismatic speaker, but somehow that person lets them know that there's a world here that can open up, and there are ways of thinking about things that are valuable and exciting and all the rest. They need the friends, they need the teachers, right? Sufficient and necessary, both. Well, that means the real problem, now, okay, the reason this stuff is all so crucial is that what you offer, what the university offers, is not really what you think it does. What you think it offers is information. Sorry, there are books. There are books. There's online stuff. Information is cheap. I mean, it's really cheap at this point. And there are tons, for instance, 19-year-old comes, walks around and says, I want to learn calculus. Yeah, they can go online and for $10 they can buy a calculus book and work through it on their own. Anybody know anybody who's ever done it? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. When do people actually? It's a miracle, right? Think about it. I mean, some students of very modest abilities can learn calculus if you put them in a room with a bunch of other students who are working on calculus, and there's a good teacher up front. And then, they're not great, but they more or less learn calculus. That's a miracle. I mean, you know how much work it took Isaac Newton to come up with this? And he was really, really smart. So anyhow, you get the idea. So what the university does is not provide information, it provides motivation. That's why you're here. You're to provide, you as a teacher, your job is providing motivation. And the university is an exercise in what I call macro teaching. That is, it's creating the conditions under which students will learn. And the primary condition is getting people together. You're bringing people together, primarily physically, but also we have other technologies now to try to bring people together with other people who want to study the same thing, because when you get people together who have the same interests, right, things take off. You get a critical mass and things explode, right? They get excited. That's the way you motivate people. You bring like-minded people together. Okay, so I would say if we want to have a list here, we say result number 1 is personal relationships are crucial. Result number 2 is, in a sense, it doesn't take much for that to work, if you're talking about some particular student. Number 3, a little bit of effort in this direction on our part can go a long way. Now I'm going to give you an example that's going to be way out in left field for you folks. I understand that. It's just an example. Bear with. All right. There is a legend at my college. We'll call it the legend of having dinner at a professor's home. All right. Small liberal arts college kind of thing. And the legend goes like this. If you talk to any of our alums, 50 years even after they graduated, and say, did you like Hamilton College? And they go, oh, it was great. Now, tell me about it. Oh, there's this, and there's this. And I had dinner at Professor Chambliss's home. And they're jazzed up about it. They think this is the coolest thing ever. And I'm literally, decades after they graduated, I had dinner at Professor so-and-so's home. They think this is a big deal. Now, I used to hear this from not former students, because I was young back in the day, but, alums. They would talk about this like this is a big... And I thought, well, it's dinner. It's not that big a deal. But to them, it seemed to be a very big deal. So, in the course of our research, we said, let's see if this is true. 2 parts, right? Part 1, does this really happen at our college? Part 2, does it actually matter? The answer to part 1 is, turns out it happens a lot. Like 60-70% of our students will have dinner at a professor's home. Sometimes it's a small school, okay? It's different. I'm not recommending, have 700 people over. But again, the example, it's just an example. But I'll show you how it works. Okay, but part 2 is, does this actually matter? Now, as a problem in social science, it's a little bit tricky. But we did a pretty good job. We had senior surveys compiled over a 7-year period with it was close to 100% response rate, actually, on these surveys. We'd give them out, they did them online a week before graduation, and we said you can't walk unless you finish the survey. Okay, social science marches on, right? But they don't care. The survey wasn't difficult or anything. But we had, among the other questions, we had 2 questions on there. One was, were you ever a guest in a faculty member's home? Right? Ever or never. A guest in a faculty member's home. Actually, we had a number of options, but we collapsed the results. And the other question was, if you had it to do over again, would you choose again to attend this college? Right? Now that turns out to be a very good satisfaction measure. It's better than asking, were you satisfied or happy or anything. Would you choose again to go to this particular school? And then, what you see here is the simple correlation. By the way, y'all are smart. I know you're thinking, you can account for that with various, there are spurious relationships and all that. We'll get to that. The rough correlation says, yeah, there's a connection. The students who have been a guest in a faculty member's home were more likely to say they would choose again to attend the college. Now you understand, the dinner lasts a couple of hours. College lasts 4 years. That's what we call a powerful potential relationship. That is, a little bit of input could lead to a very big positive result. But, there are other variables. Like maybe it's the best students who are getting invited. Or maybe certain kinds of students attend these things, therefore they're more likely to say they choose again, etc. You could explain this away 8 ways to Sunday. So what we did is we took the database with these surveys in it, and we gave them to 2 different independent consultants, statistical consultants, working on this kind of stuff. And we said to them, see if you can explain away that correlation. See if you can account for it. A lot of other variables we had in the database, right? GPA and gender and race and I don't know what all. We had all the stuff that really affects these numbers. And they independently came back and said, you can't get rid of this correlation. You follow me? It holds up. And one of these people who, PhD from University of Maryland and Michigan Joint Program in Survey Research, basically the best in the country. This woman now works for the U.S. Army doing surveys in Afghanistan, a non-trivial social science place to do research. But okay, she knows what she's doing. She came back and said, let me modify the language a little bit. She said, you can take a baseball bat and beat the tar out of that correlation, and it won't go away. It won't go away. It's real. Something about being a guest in a faculty member's home one time seems to lead to a significant increase in a student's likelihood of, in effect, enjoying their entire college experience. Now, we could talk about why that is, and I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, but that's powerful, right? That's a little bit of effort in a certain thing can go a long way. All right, fine. Result number, whatever the next one is. Ooh, that looks interesting. All right, this one is about advising. And the message here I'm going to suggest to you is that mentorship matters. Mentorship matters. Now, you don't even have to look at this for right now. The The Gallup organization, you know who Gallup is? Gallup polls? Gallup, since the 1930s, has done surveys, public surveys. Gallup is one of the best commercial survey organizations in the United States. They do very high quality work. There are a lot of them you've heard of, not so good. But Gallup does good work. Gallup got together with Purdue University when Mitch Daniels became president there, and they did a study, which is ongoing, of 30,000 college graduates around the United States from all kinds of different colleges. And they're looking for what kinds of things seem to predict life outcomes, really. So they're looking at people 20, 30 years after they finish college. 30,000 people in the sample. And they were looking at things like financial success, life, are you happy in your family life, community ties, do you have friends, all sorts of things like that go into it, right? And what Gallup found is that the number one factor in life success 20 to 30 years after graduating from college was having a mentor in college. Major, forget it. Having a mentor in college. Very powerful effect. All right, so I'm going to talk about this thing very quickly because there are other things to go to. But essentially what this shows, if you take that top line, that's all we'll look at here. Close and personal, right there. We had, this is actually kind of a mashup of a couple of surveys, but the questions were virtually identical. This was 1 year of one of our senior surveys. We wanted to know, did students ever have a close relationship with some faculty member they had worked with? And we asked them about their freshman, sophomore advisors. Well, the number's quite low, 13%. We think that's low, let me put it that way. 13% had a close relationship with their freshman advisor. Well, their major advisor, the number jumps to 40. Yeah, okay, all right. We're getting a handle on this. It was kind of faculty attitude. Yeah, we pick up speed as they go along. That's good. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is when you ask them, did you ever have it with a faculty member who was never your advisor, the number goes to 80%. So we thought advisors and mentors, our advising system is done by the faculty, small school, right? We thought advisors and mentors were the same people. They're not. The official advisor, who cares? I mean, maybe their work, maybe it works out, maybe they don't. Doesn't matter. But they find some other faculty member. 80% of our students have a close relationship with a professor by the time they graduate. That's pretty amazing. But what's really neat is not even on the survey, which was among the interviews we did, that is face-to-face, one-on-one with our panel sample, with 100 people roughly. When we talked to them, what jumped out when we started asking questions about advisors is, if you had put it, did you ever have a close relationship with any adult on campus, the number went to basically 100%. Because people were saying things like, I'd say something like, well, did you ever have a close relationship with an adult who helped you out? Oh, yeah, my supervisor at the mail center. Right, my supervisor in the mail center. Or my supervisor in the development office, a girl who spent 3 years dialing for dollars. She'd sit in the development office at night and call up alums and ask for money. The guy who supervised me there. Work-study boss is what we're talking about, right? Another person mentioned reference librarian. I'm like, reference librarian? Shh, no talking. No, I like reference librarians, right? They're very good. And we said to it, why reference librarians? And the answer was, because they're kind of like faculty, but they'll tell you the truth. You understand, right? Okay, yeah. They say like, don't take that course. It's no good. See, professor won't do that. It's not professional. The librarian, like, you don't want to take that. But the point is that students found these mentors in all kind of surprising places. When I talked to the advisors this morning, I said, you're called an advisor, but who knows what your job really is? The fact is, if you're talking to some student and something comes up, you try to help them. So yeah, you might help them in this way, but it might be in some other way. You're an adult on campus. You're a knowledgeable person. You work here. You represent the institution to them. So when something comes along, you deal with it. All right. So mentors matter. Number 5. Oh, this is really going to get complicated. Okay. By the way, John, you have any of those handouts on this? Pardon? Yeah, pass them around. It'd be fun. People have something to fiddle with. Okay, so you all get a little copy of this. Oh, thanks, Dan. I'm going to frame this. Okay, this is about not your school, not my school now. It's 10 years ago. Seems kind of weird and complicated, but it illustrates a couple of points that are really worth having. All right, this is a computer-generated diagram, flattened into 2 dimensions from 7 or 8 originally, of student activities at Hamilton College 10 years ago. Now, what it tells you is not exactly student activities. It's based on students who are in various activities of all sorts, including majors and extracurriculars and Greek societies and sports teams and all kinds of things. What it basically shows is if you're in a particular activity, what are your chances of being connected to another activity? Or, to put it differently, how many acquaintances do you have? Right? So roughly speaking, the people in the center of this chart are well connected on campus. They know a lot of people. That's important. And by the way, what's also important, this was a big surprise to us. When we threw all the data in the computer and cranked this thing through and it came out, I wouldn't say, jaws hit the floor, but it was very surprising, right? We just didn't know. Because traditionally, we thought, for instance, fraternity guys are well connected. They know a lot of people, that we thought. We were wrong. They're actually among the least well-connected people on our campus. All right, so let me show you 3 cases in particular. Number 1, dead center, the choir. Yeah, choir, right? The college choir. And when we got this, we started talking about the particular students we knew from our panel. And what we knew is that the choir members really liked being at the college. I mean, they seemed successful. And they were sort of academically inclined and good kids and, kind of fun to talk with and so on. I don't know why. Well, it turns out the why is because they know everybody. That's a significant chunk of it, right? They don't have trouble meeting folks at all. They join in their freshman year, and there are 80 people in the choir. You walk in, you're one of 20 new students in it. 3 times a week, you're getting together with all these other people, and you're singing great music. And every so often, you go to, go travel on trips and perform all over the place in the bus, and you're, and you're having a great time. Plus, the people you're meeting in the choir are from all over the campus. They are in all kind of different dorms and other activities and sororities and, sports teams and all the rest, right? So when you walk around the campus, anywhere you go, you know somebody if you're in the choir. And the group's big enough that you make friends from you can find close friends in a group that size if you're meeting with them regularly, ongoing, and so on. Second point, up to the left of the choir is the writing center. This does not refer to clients of the writing center. It refers to tutors. The people who work as tutors in the college writing center know a lot of folks. Because all day, on the days they're working in there, other students will come in and say, I need your help. Please? And they're nice and respectful. And you give them help, and then they go out. And then as one of the students put, when I walk across the bridge, there's a bridge across a kind of ravine in the middle of our campus, and a lot of traffic going back and forth all day, right? So I walk across the bridge, and everybody's like, hi, 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 hey, how's it going? Morning, hey, hi, how are you? Oh, good. Says, I feel like I own the place because I know everybody. And the writing center and the choir, as you can see, are quite close together, and there's a big, heavy line between them. A lot of people are in both. Tutors in the writing center who are also in the college choir, and guess what else? Those activities, comparatively speaking, are somewhat intellectually oriented. They tend to be good students. The people who are in the writing tutors, obviously, it's a selective job, and you got to be a good writer. And the choir members, for whatever reason, they're smart kids and they're into schoolwork. And so, intellectually oriented kids. And when we set up, when the college set up the writing center, I was actually involved in like 1987 or whenever it was. We were thinking about improving writing. We weren't thinking about the social life of the tutors. But it worked. That's one of the effects. Right. Intellectually oriented activities, then, students who are in them, are at the center of social networks at the college. And on senior surveys, they are the most satisfied students at Hamilton College. Oh, now there's a nice payoff. When I got there 36 years ago, that was not the case. I've got the senior surveys from those years. And the intellectually oriented kids 35 years ago were the least satisfied students at the college. I'm just saying. They felt like they were outcasts and nobody studies like, I feel kind of weird because I'm the nerdy kid. Now, the nerdy kids, tops. They got a lot of friends. They really like the place. By comparison, there's a little odd group, over here, for instance, you could pick some of the other peripheral groups. The peripheral ones aren't, peripheral's kind of overstating it, you understand? All these people have friends and so on, pretty much. But there are some groups kind of more fringy. Give you one example. Fraternity, here's what happens in this one fraternity. Guys come in, guys, right? The men are less socially deliberate than the women. They sort of let things happen rather than be proactive a lot of times. Okay, the guys come in because they're recruited for a particular sport. That particular sport is associated with a particular fraternity. So they join that frat. Okay? You got the sport, which is a great place to meet people, by the way. Great place to make friends. Those 2 or 3 friends, join the sport. Then they join the fraternity of the same guys. And then the same bunch of guys decides, hey, now we don't have frat houses at our college. They say, hey, let's block a dorm. Meaning in the house, they game the housing lottery, so they take over a wing of a dorm. Kaboom. So what turn out to be the 3 best ways to meet friends and make people, they have layered, boom, 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 one on top of each other. It's the same group of people. And what happens, those guys are really fired up and dancing around and happy and having a grand old time their first year and a half, 2 years. And by junior year, one morning, they wake up on the couch, on a Sunday morning like, That's what they did. They've told us this in interviews. The guys are very straightforward about it. Like, oh, man. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I wasting this money? I haven't met anybody. I'm stale. I'm hanging. We're getting drunk all the time. I'm just telling you, welcome to the Northeast.
Because all the girls are in choir.
Because all the girls are in. That's the answer. That's the answer. And all the happy guys.
And all the happy guys.
Right? That's exactly right. Now, one of our guys, he was a football player who found himself in this situation. He said, I got to branch out. I got to do something. So he signs somehow he auditioned for and got a part in a musical. And he says, the next thing you know, he says, I'm doing this. Right? Football for big guy. Said, I had a great time. It was hilarious, and my friends all came and laughed and clapped, and I met a whole bunch of people. It was great. He graduated happy. Right? That's what you want, is this branching out kind of thing. Okay. But every campus is different, so I don't know how it works here, but you get the idea, right? It's bringing people together. That can create the whole culture of what kinds of things are seen as cool or not, and it determines what kind of students are going to really prosper and be happy. And then you see you can build your operation around that. Okay, so what do you do? Okay, I don't have a slide for this, but it's quite simple. In effect, what you want to do at your institution is, again, bring people together. You want students to be able to find the right people at the right time in their careers. And again, it's not that curriculum doesn't matter, or your program, or your major, any of that. I mean, those are good things. Right? I'm a professor, you know, I like sociology. I think students ought to learn it. But what drives their interest is going to be the relationships they get into. Who are the other students they meet, and who are the professors they meet, especially early on. Okay? So, in a sense, your project should be, again, what I call macro teaching. But let's say bringing people together then works at all kind of levels. At the broadest level, it's a matter of admissions, who you bring to campus, for instance, right? You've got a location that makes a difference, right? I mean, you're in Utah. Let's see, does that affect who we get here? No kidding, right? I'm in upstate New York. We have by the way, your demographics are looking great, right? You're doing fine. We have a serious problem. I mean, we have a huge decline in high school students. It's coming on. So we've been branching out, looking at Miami. I am not joking. We now recruit. We have a pipeline of really smart kids coming from Miami, Florida, coming to Utica, New York, where it's 24 below zero last week one day. No exaggeration. All right? But you got to do, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm jumping now. Okay, so admissions and hiring. When you hire faculty, I just talked to new faculty. This is a great thing, right? Getting a job in this market, in this profession, right? So you hire the right people, you hire you bring in, admit the students, and then you bring them together. Well, how do you bring them together? Let's go sort of mid-level. We'll call it if that's macro, let's call it meso-level. Things like scheduling. Very powerful impact on students' careers in college. So you can set up your curriculum and have your majors and your labs, and you got your syllabus all worked out. If they can't get in the class, it doesn't happen. If it's at an unfavorable time or a bad location, I mean literally where you put the class physically can affect how many people get in it and who they are. Who they are, right? Access kinds of issues there. I'll make one comment here. Who teaches intro class is, again, crucially important in any department. It's not that they're a better teacher. That's not the point. It's a different thing. And some people are great at it and some people aren't. If you got somebody who's great at it, let them teach intro. And what's a mistake is just throwing anybody into it. I'm just telling you. It happens all over America. A lot of places have basically their last pick teaching slot is intro. It's completely backwards. It's got to be the most important. It's got to be the most important step, because it is. Because if intro doesn't work, all the rest goes downhill fast. Even if the students physically stay in your major, they're not in the right mindset, or they feel sluggish, or they don't think it's cool, or whatever. I don't know how it plays out here. All right. Another example of getting people together. A great way for students to find friends, well, there are a couple of ways. What you want, again, are activities like the choir, in which students are going to regularly be forced to interact with enough other people that they find friends. So small groups don't work. It's got to be at least 20 probably, over and over and over again. Now this is most important for the students who are most at risk of not having friends. Right? The shy, the awkward, out of place, feel like they don't belong here, that kind of thing. Those people are not going to go out and make friends. You got to put them in a situation where they're going to have to make friends. Again, a musical group that's pretty large is great for it. Certain sports teams, the guys on the football team have friends. There they are every day. They're running the same crowd of 80 or 90 or 100 guys. They're going to meet people, right? Here's another good one. Dorms. Certain kinds of dorms work fabulously well. Others don't. I will offer an opinion, not knowing how you all do it. I think apartment-style dormitories for college freshmen is the worst idea higher education has come up with in the past 25 years. I'll say that, right? It's bad for two reasons. One is it isolates people at exactly the time they shouldn't be isolated. You can do it later, that's fine. Once you got friends, fine, go have an apartment. The other reason it's so bad is the students think they'll like it. They want it. They think this is a great idea. I'll have my own pad. Yeah. And I talked to a boys' prep school. Imagine the scene. An all-boys prep school recently. And I brought up the idea of apartment-style dorms. Freshman year in college. You could see the place kind of light up. They're like, yeah. Right? Things are happening, right? I'm rocking out. And I said, you guys think like chicks will come over. And I said to them, no chicks. And you can see the air start going out of the room, are coming over. Because you're not going to meet any chicks. Because you're going to be holed up playing video games all the time. While the chicks are in the choir or whatnot, right? I said, what you need is an old-fashioned, ugly, long-haul dorm of some sort. And I don't know, different colleges do this differently, I know that. But where there are tons of people, and you can't help meeting them. And you might even, if you're in a co-ed dorm kind of place, I don't know, different schools and all that, you might even meet some chicks. Or guys, or women, even. Who knows? There could be a whole new world out there. But you'll make friends. Then you can go have your apartment, right? But you got to have friends. I'll give you, ooh, gosh, how are we doing? Let's see. We're doing fine. All right, I'll finish up here. Finish up with one quick story about a dorm. My youngest daughter, our youngest daughter, went to Fordham University in the Bronx, in New York City, which is 7,000, 8,000 students, something like that. And when Rebecca moved in, the day, move-in day at college, and there are all the cars and the vans and the SUVs and all this stuff, huge crowd of people in the parking lot. We get to the dorm, and it's this huge old stone building, right? And we get there, and people are unloading, and out of the vans come, there's the daughter, the girl like, it's all women's dorm, right? And the parents and the grandma, and there's a sibling who's always kind of sullen, like, right? And they're carrying all this stuff, and the dog, I don't know. And they have those plastic laundry baskets, with a poster sticking out. And we're all hiking up the 4 flights of stairs because, of course, the elevator didn't work. That's the way it works. August in New York, it's hot and muggy and gross. And we all climb up all the way to the top story of the building, the fourth floor. She's kind of under the eaves. And we get to the top and look down this hallway. There are 20 rooms all the way down this hall, right? 80 girls are going in. These are quads. Double bunk beds in every room. It's like a barracks, like a military, all the way down the hall. Now do the arithmetic, right? There are 80 girls, plus the parents, plus the grandma, plus the dog, plus the sibling, plus the... It's jammed with people going up and down. Total pandemonium. And I look over at Rebecca, our daughter, and she's just like... And I look at my wife, who's also a college professor, and we're looking at each other, and we're like, this is great. Because she's going to make friends. She's going to know people right off the bat. There's no choice. It has nothing to do with whether you're shy or outgoing or interested in this or that or the other, right? You're going to have friends. And she told us years later, her three of her best friends in her life are her college freshman roommates, right? And she told us years later, she said, you know, I never spent a day in college. I never had the experience of walking into the cafeteria and not having somebody to sit with. That's a very good way to start. It's a very good, and it was built in. It's in the physical infrastructure and assignment, you know, and the dorm assignment of that university. You had to make friends. That was just the way it was built in. Okay, so I've been going on quite a while, so I'm going to stop for and say, you know, the basic point of all this stuff really is that's what's going on here. If you want people to learn your subject, whatever it is, there are no isolated thinkers, okay? You do it with other people. And you've got to meet other people who are interested in it, in your subject, and that's what makes it happen. It's all about motivation, folks. That's the point. And the way to motivate people is get them together with other people who are interested in the same sorts of things. I will stop. We can discuss. I'll take questions. We'll go any way you want with it. Does that make sense, Robert? Yes? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. You've been a marvelous audience. I appreciate it. Let's see where we... What do you want to do here? Talk, please.
Could you talk a little bit about online learning and
yes,
how that
great. Well, you know, I mean, the obvious great thing, I mean, online learning, in a way, is like the invention of books. All of a sudden, you don't have to be standing with Socrates to learn what he has to say, right? I mean, that's a good thing. So it opens access to people who are, you know, however many hundreds of miles away or whatnot in your case. I mean, that's pretty impressive. The downside, of course, is it's not the same as face-to-face. And you folks have, as far as I can tell, state-of-the-art online education. I mean, I took a tour this morning. I mean, that's fabulous stuff. You know, with the big screens where you can see people clearly at the other end, and it's back and forth, and, you know, synchronous and all that business. That said, I think there are things in face-to-face communication that are very hard to replicate. And it's not just, because it's not just information back and forth in the sense of seeing a person's face close up, you get a lot more information, right? You can see in detail what they really think about something. Whereas, like online in the sense of, I don't know the technical terms for these things, but you know, the typing, like if written form kind of thing, like discussion groups in written form, assume that the people can communicate in writing really well. That's the assumption, is that they can say what they have to say this way. Whereas, as I explained to my students in methods class, when you ask somebody on a survey, do you like Professor Chambliss' class? They could say yes or no. Okay, they could say yes. Let's say this. If you go and interview that person face to face, did you like Professor Chambliss' class? And they could go, yeah. Or they could go, yeah. Or they could go, oh, yeah. Those are three different yeses. I mean, they're quite different. But on paper, they're identical. Right? So the weakness of, I mean, the closer the communication, the better, is I think what I'm saying. And there's also something about being physically co-present with other people that is very powerful. And I think it has some to do with even risk. Like there's a sense of, I don't want to say danger, that's not quite right, but you know, if I go over here like this, there's kind of no telling what I'm capable of. And the student feels that, right? They feel you're more emotionally engaged in the moment. And I think it's probably very hard to replicate that sort of experience online. And it works. I mean, it matters. Just from what I've heard from students who've done it, there's a difference. There's a difference. But I don't know. Other questions, ideas, whatever. Please. Yeah, did you? Yeah.
What about students who
See, now that. Did you see that, for instance? I don't think you even raised your hand to speak of. I mean, there was a little like thing. That's relatively hard to pick up this way. Yes, please, go ahead.
What about students who identify themselves as introverts?
Yeah, yeah,
And obviously, they
sure.
need connection, and it's
Yeah.
not that they don't like people,
Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
drained by social
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, in terms of putting them in a group of people, is it better to have them in small groups, or?
Good question. The problem with the small groups is, I mean, you've got to be exposed to enough people you're going to find folks you connect with. And I'm not going to speak to every individual, right, in the sense, I don't know, maybe there are people who are better off staying in a closet, staying just alone. The odds are, for most people, it's better to meet other folks. And then pick your time and, say, well, I need my space. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. There was a, yes.
Yeah. How well do you think your findings would apply to non-traditional students?
Great question. Sure. Great question. Well, I don't know. That's first. Second, my best guess would be that non-traditional students probably have different motivations for showing up in the first place, right? And, I mean, maybe they already have a very clear career path. They know why they're trying to get a master's degree, let's say, or complete some, an undergraduate degree or whatnot. So they probably are better motivated in a lot of respects, I'm guessing. About their, like this, right? They have different motivations, might be a better way to put it. That said, I think there are very few people who don't appreciate somebody actually being interested in them. And, if you can establish anything, find out what they need, give them help with it, and it works. And so if you actually, for instance, if you know their name, that's knowing and using somebody's name is very powerful, right? You know that. Or a different variant of that is knowing what somebody can do and what they're good and bad at, where their strengths and weaknesses are, what they need to work on. And feedback about that sort of thing, again, is kind of affirming as a person. You feel like somebody recognizes you and knows what you're trying to do. So I would think all of that kind of stuff would work quite well. Is that what you were thinking of, or?
Yeah, I was just curious how well you thought that would extrapolate out to, and I think that you identified there a key factor, and that motivation is different.
Is different.
Non-traditional
Is
students.
definitely different, right?
And certainly they come in with, a lot of our students are married, have kids.
Yeah, sure.
They have a social network
Absolutely.
already, but
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's different. Ours was based on residential, traditional age, non-married, et cetera, and you clearly have a different demographic in that respect, in those respects. So I don't know. I guess what I know, 35 years as a social scientist, is who you spend time with is really important. And spending time with somebody is powerful, right? So even if they've already got their life set up, if you somehow have, especially face-to-face contact, it's just disproportionately influential in all kind of unpredictable ways often. You don't know. Yeah, please.
I was really impressed where you went.
It's a very good start to the question.
Where you went with the whole notion of outcomes, because outcomes in education have something that are so constrained and so limited to sort
No
of
kidding.
cognitive and behavioral
No kidding.
things. And I wonder if you have reflected on how this might extend your study deals with higher education.
Yeah.
But with educational reform and looking at K
Oh,
how does
break my heart.
How does this apply to, the broader educational environment outside of higher education?
Yeah, we're really messing things up.
Yeah.
We're really messing things up. And simplest case would be evaluating a student on what they know at the end of a course is a truly, we do it. We've all done this forever. But making that the big thing is a big mistake. Because you can bully somebody into doing well at something short term. What you can't do is control what happens to them when they go out on their own. And in our case, like at a college, if we can bully people into doing, good work on some final exam in a course, and then they've got the next 40 years of their life. And if you bullied them to get in there, they're going to hate it. They're not going to study it anymore after they leave. And they're going to resent it. And they're going to say, that was a bunch of junk. And so on, right? And you've destroyed them. You've damaged them. Rather than what you really want to do is prepare them to keep learning and be interested and think this is valuable and so on. That's the payoff. It's not what they learn short term. I mean, what you're really doing is teaching people what it's like to be a certain kind of person. Like, I don't know, when I've studied nursing, what it's like to be a nurse. That's what they learn in nursing school. I mean, the technique, they got to learn some techniques. But, you get out there and start working. But it's the model of how a nurse behaves, right? And the way to think about this thing. I can't remember if I gave you, I've done so many, I can't remember these different meetings, that I saw the student who graduated. This was at a reunion a couple of years ago, and I saw somebody who had graduated 10 years earlier. And she thought I was great and stuff. We had a swell time. And I said, well, what did I do that really helped you? I'm thinking like I taught her sociological theory or something like that. She said, oh, no. She said you did one thing that really mattered. She said, you showed me that it was possible to be an intellectual and a nice person at the same time. For a moment, I was flattered. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'll back up a minute. Let me think. What's the assumption behind that one? Right? That's what we're doing. If people out there in America think universities are, somehow bad things in some ways, or academics are all arrogant, obnoxious, stuck up, blah, 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 they picked that up somewhere. And some of them picked it up because they went to college and had a bad experience. So if you can show your students that it's possible, just one time, one or two, right? If you could say, no, that's not why that person acts that way. That person's a jerk. It's not because they're a professor. Doesn't go with the territory. If you can show students, you can be an intellectual of whatever sort, right? And a nice person at the same time. Change their life. Change the way they think about a whole realm of experience. Whereas, something we picked up in some of our studies, this one is the red flag. Student comes in to college and they take an intro course in some field they were excited about. And it's terrible. And it's boring and stupid. They never again take a course in that field. And for the rest of their life, they think that field is boring and stupid. That's the payoff for a lousy intro course in a lot of fields. Right? And in sciences, I can tell you in a liberal arts program, do that in a science course, they won't ever take another science course. Much less, bio or chemistry or whatever the particular one was. They wipe out entire fields of human endeavor at a swat. They never go on. Whereas, if they take one that's engaging and exciting and cool and revealing stuff, the information could be wrong. But they'll maybe correct some of it later because they go on and they take other things. And for the rest of their life, they're interested in reading about, ecology and geology and stuff. They find, oh, Professor so-and-so was real fun and exciting, but, he's kind of wrong. That's okay. That's a good outcome. Yeah. Because they continued being interested. So my point about outcomes is that, you want to have them learn more. That's one outcome. The other one, I don't know. If you read the book, we have a little passage about this. We do a lot in the book with students' satisfaction, let's call it, right? And alumni, like 20 years after they graduate, how they feel about it. A lot of people criticized us for that and said, well, what about real outcomes? I'm like, happiness is an okay outcome, right? That's legitimate. That's why we want people to have better lives. I'm not teaching sociology. I mean, I think it's important. You got it? I like sociology. But really, our accreditors actually asked us this, came in, said to me at one point, said, well, what do you really want your students to get? And I just blurted out. I didn't even think about it. I just said, I want them to have good lives. You know, like what kind of question is that? You know, your outcomes? You know, that counts, right? Yeah. So, anyway. And we think we can contribute in specific ways to that. Yeah.
Sorry, just to follow up with what you're talking about here, the 1 to 2 faculty members that are key, what did your research reveal about personality traits or character traits or teaching methods, or is it just the relationship
No.
with the student?
You know, one of the people at the new faculty thing asked me the same sort of question, said, well, what is it that they have? And I said, there are a lot of ways of doing it, apparently. It depends on the individual student. You know, what's right for them at that point. That said, the one thing I sort of think about is you want to try, and you can decide this, you want to genuinely be on their side, which does not come easy for most of us. That is, you can have all sorts of great students in your class or whatever, and you get somebody who asks a really sharp question, and they're smarter than you are. You know, and there's that moment where you're like, oh, gee, okay, how do I deal with it? You gotta be glad. You gotta go, whoa, great, whoa. Wait, say that again. Tell us that part again. You got to take pleasure in other people's success. How's that? You got to, I mean, if you're going to be a great teacher, and you can be good, you can be really good and not have this. I mean, I could think of particular colleagues who are really, really smart and great in the classroom and dynamite, but there's a level at which you realize they can't quite deal with that person who comes along and is just fabulous because they're jealous. Right? A lot of us got into the biz because, like me, I got in because I wanted to be in musical theater. I can't sing and I can't dance. Oh. Other than that, I would have been great. You know, but I figured I'd be a performer, you know, stand up front, be smart, you know, be funny, all this stuff. And that works, you know, it's good. But you know, you got to be willing at some point to let the student be the star. And if you can really start doing that, you can work with people for their whole lives. You know, I mean, I have all these kids who have gone on to fabulous careers now. I mean, 50-year-olds at this point. And, you know, just sitting there and asking them what they're doing and how, and pray, you know, being glad they've done well, that's great. I'm rambling. Anyway, yeah. Please.
What did you learn from the writing study?
From the writing center? Oh, the writing study. Okay. 2,000 papers in an archive eventually. Collected them over a 5-year period. So we had all of the students who applied to Hamilton have to submit a high school paper, a graded high school paper with comments on it, right, from a teacher. So presumably it's the best paper they wrote in high school. We assume, more or less. They have to do that. We also collected papers from all the panelists. We also collected a lot of papers from a lot of classes where we get all the papers. We sampled out of that group conservatively. That is, we sampled to make the early papers be the best ones. That is, the high school and freshman year papers were picked as being ones we thought would be really good. You know, these were in writing classes. This was the one they submitted with their application. After that, we let it slide a bit so that they would be worse, in effect. You follow me so far? So we put together an archive then of 1,100, or well, I think it's 1,068 papers out of the 2,000. So we had a 5-year string. Now, for the panel members, that is the 100 students we followed, we had, boom, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also had cross-sectional groups as well. You follow me? We hired 8 people from other colleges to come in. We trained them in evaluating these papers on a rubric we designed of just standard things about basic writing kind of stuff. We took all the identifiers off of all the papers. so that nobody would know when they were written or by whom, and put code numbers on them. We mixed the papers up in a random pile of 1,068 papers. We gave those, this lasted weeks, by the way, the evaluation process. We brought the people in and housed them and everything like this. We gave them to these people and had them all evaluate all these papers on all of these criteria. We took all the numbers from that, dumped it in a computer, and ran 3 different statistical analyses. We were looking to see if students actually improve over the course of their college career. That is, can you take a pile of papers from high school all the way through college and sort them out according to the year the student would be in college? So the way I put this is, if you took, now here's the answer, if you took a random Hamilton College student and you took 5 papers they had written, high school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, you mixed up those papers in a pile and handed them to some outsider who had no idea what they were reading. That person could sort those papers 1, 2, 3, 4. They can't separate junior and senior year. Otherwise, the progression was linear. Every year, they got noticeably, not that somebody could tell the difference, noticeably better every year. That was the result. Okay? And in interviewing the students, what we got from them is that the single biggest factor in their improving their writing, and a lot of them were kind of embarrassed about it, and they're like, you won't believe this, but it was one time they had a meeting with a professor about a paper they had written. One-on-one, looking at it like this. And it wasn't that they learned anything, technically tricky, about restrictive clauses or something. Or, you got to use parallel structures for parallel. It wasn't technical writing information. It was they learned that you can do it. That it's a craft, right? It's like carpentry. You look at it and you say, oh, this is in the wrong place. Let's put it here. That is better. They see that, and they're doing it with an important person, right? They know your time's valuable. That's not the issue. Right? An important person is taking the time to show them how to do it. So that person cares about me and thinks this is important. That was the single biggest impact. Yeah. Yeah, that was the writing study. It was good. It was really expensive. I mean, you don't want to try to do this one. And the faculty was terrified. When I got up and gave them the results, they knew this was planned out. Said, we're going to have a blind study of student writing and see if they actually improve. You sure this is a good idea, Dan? Right? And I'm telling you, I gave that result. I did that 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. They cheered. It was good. It was nice. Nice moment. Please. If you need to go, folks, feel free, please. I understand. I appreciate your coming, by the way. This is a lot of time. Yeah.
Student inputs financially, for example, or things like that. How did that play into your results? Like students that were on heavy financial aid, for example, were they more or less satisfied than those that held down a part-time job? That had to work for it, or
Good question. Good question.
Things like that. Their personal investment financially, maybe.
Right. I don't know. I don't know the answer. My guess. I don't know. I'm not even. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Please.
Did you look at retention rates from that freshman to sophomore? And
sure.
Attrition.
Sure.
See why?
Well, our freshman retention rate, to sophomore year is 92%. Our 6-year graduation is 84%. So that's not typical. I mean, that's very high in the U.S. I think Haverford's is like 86 or 7. They are probably at the top. But no, that's high. Was there a...
Those that left, so that...
You mean out of our sample? Is that what you're asking?
did you see why they didn't come back?
Sure. Yeah, oh yeah, those people have been studied 8 ways to Sunday. Like, what's going on? How can we work on this kind of thing? There were really two kinds. One was people who just shouldn't have gone there in the first place. I mean, they kind of were surprised it was a small school, you know. Gee, it sure is cold here, you know, that kind of thing. Like, well, no kidding. And the other was people who came from a long way off, like California. They were just too far from home. So that was the other big one. We have a few who always use it as a stepping stone, like they transfer to Brown, for instance, their second year. So they'll come in and do great and then go to an Ivy League school. So that happens, but the numbers are minuscule by your standards. So, yeah, please.
What's the average number of students that one could actually invite to dinner in your home?
Okay. On the dinner thing is an example, you understand, of how a small thing can have a big impact. It's quite powerful. I've had as many as, 30. You fix a pot of stew, you have them come. What I do know is it can. Now, don't do it if it's not your thing. I mean, not a lot of people like, oh, I couldn't stand, or your students wouldn't go for it. That happens too. But if they do like it, it's quite powerful, and it's because it, in the language of theater, it breaks the fourth wall, right? It lets them know you're a human being, and that can be quite compelling because then it's not that they're learning some topic; it's they're learning how to be a certain person. And again, like the story I told you, it teaches them that you can be a, petroleum engineer and live this way or do this kind of thing, or I don't know what the example would be, but it opens up new possibilities. Yes. Okay, Robert, should we? Yes. Thank you very much, folks. I really appreciate it.